Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Okay, we're continuing a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. We're going to start a new chapter today. This is chapter 9. It's the opposite of the previous chapter. What was the name of the previous chapter, you know? Dhruva Maharaj leaves home. What is the opposite? Returns home. That's basically what's going to happen this chapter. Okay, we're going to read from text 1 all the way through text 17. Our verse for focus today is text 6. This is the prayers offered by Dhruva Maharaj. That's the section that we're going to read today. I don't think we'll have time to read all 17 verses, so we'll just do text 1 through 6 and then discuss text 6, and if the time permits, we can do the other verses. So, we'll start with this. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll do the prayers and translation together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Okay. The last chapter actually ended on a cliffhanger, if you realize that. You know, the last few verses, what happened in the last chapter? Yes, Rishta, use the mic.
I believe the last thing we heard was that he closed up all his breathing holes and he was choking the universe.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of where we left.
Actually, what happened as a result of it? Okay, the earth was, his weight was so much, he was standing on one toe, the earth was feeling the weight, so much so that she was thinking she was going to sink. Then, as a result of it, what happened? Something that usually happens when there is trouble. What happens? Yeah. Hey, this is very problematic for me. So all the demigods go and pray to Krishna. Krishna, can you please do something? It's just getting too much for us. They're tolerating it. At this point, he's closed all his holes and he's suffocating everybody. And he said, you have to relent now. Now please go. It's just too much for us. And then Krishna is saying, okay, you go, I'll deal with him. That's basically what's going to happen. So now Krishna is going to personally give his darshan to Dhruva Maharaj, and Dhruva Maharaj will offer his beautiful, beautiful prayers to Krishna in this chapter. So we'll start with text 1. Can somebody read the translation?
Hare Krishna. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya told Vidura, when the demigods were thus reassured by the personality of Godhead, they were freed from all fears, and after offering their obeisances, they returned to their heavenly planets. Then the Lord, who is not different from the Sahasrara incarnation, got on the back of Garuda, who carried him to the Madhuvana forest to see his servant, Dhruva.
The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva Maharaja, in his mature yogic process, was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart.
When Dhruva Maharaj saw his Lord just in front of him, he was greatly agitated and offered him obeisances and respect. He fell flat before him like a rod and became absorbed in love of Godhead. Dhruva Maharaj, in ecstasy, looked upon the Lord as if he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, kissing the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms.
Think about it. Such an incredible description.
Although Dhruva Maharaj was a small boy, he wanted to offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in suitable language, but because he was inexperienced, he could not adjust himself immediately. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva Maharaj's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his conch shell to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands.
At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of the Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities. In accordance with the line of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, whose fame is widespread, Dhruva, who in the future would receive a planet which would never be annihilated even during the time of dissolution, offered his deliberate and conclusive prayers.
Yeah. So now from text 6, Dhruva Maharaj's prayers begin. So we'll go into the Sanskrit. This is the verse for today. Dhruva uvacha yonta pravishya mama vacha mimam prashuptam sanjeevayatya kila shaktidhara swadhamna अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगाधीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् ध्रुव उवाच योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्ताम् सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् ध्रुव उवाच योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्ताम् सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् Please chant. Dhruva uvacha Yonta pravishya mama vachamimam prashuptam Sanjeevayatya kila shaktidhara swadhamna Anyamscha hastacharnashravanatvagadhin Prananamo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. It's wonderful. Hari bol. Dhruva uvacha Yonta pravishya mama vachamimam prasuptam. Sanjivayatya kila shakti dharasvadhamna. Anyamsha hasta charana shravanatvagadhin. Prananamo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. Great job, Nine and Vita. Amazing. Yonta pravishya mama vachamimam prasuptam. Sanjivayatya kila shakti dharasvadhamna. Anyam shahasta charana shravana tvagadhin. Prana namo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is the word for word translation. Dhruva uvacha. Dhruva Maharaj said, Yaha, the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord who? Thank you. Anta, within. Pravishya, entering. Mama, my. Vacham, words. Imam, all these. Prasuptam, which are all inactive or dead. Sanjivayati, rejuvenates. Akhila, universal. Shakti, energy. Dhara, possessing. Swadhamna, by his internal potency. Anyancha, other limbs also. Hasta, like hands. Charana, legs. Shravana, ears. Tvak, skin. Adin, and so on. Pranan, life force. Namaha, let me offer my obeisances. Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purushaya, the Supreme Person. Tubhyam, unto you. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj said, My dear Lord, you're all powerful. After entering within me, you have enlivened all my sleeping senses, my hands, legs, ears, touch sensation, life force, and especially my power of speech. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please repeat. Dhruva Maharaj said, My dear Lord, you're all powerful. After entering within me, you have enlivened all my sleeping senses. My hands, legs, ears, touch sensation, life force, and especially my power of speech. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. This is a big purport. I would like to read chunks of it and then discuss a little. So I'll start off with the first paragraph. Dhruva Maharaj could understand very easily the difference between his condition before and after attaining spiritual realization and seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He could understand that his life force and activities had been sleeping. Unless one comes to the spiritual platform, his bodily limbs, mind, and other facilities within the body are understood to be sleeping. Unless one is spiritually situated, all his activities are taken as a dead man's activities or ghostly activities. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has composed a song in which he addresses himself. O living entity, get up. How long shall you sleep on the lap of Maya? Now you have the opportunity of possessing a human form of body. Now try to get up and realize yourself. The Vedas also declare, get up, get up. You have the opportunity, the boon of the human form of life. Now realize yourself. These are the Vedic injunctions. So Dhruva Maharaj was in this incredible penance, right? He was performing this mystic yoga system. And the Bhagavatam describes that he was seeing Krishna within. He was practically in samadhi. This is the point where the form of Krishna that was present before him, he was already having vision of Krishna within his heart, was the exact form. And suddenly it broke. And then he was very disturbed because you can see the reaction to Dhruva Maharaj's seeing Krishna when he came out. This beautiful verse. He was completely agitated. He didn't know what to do. He really wanted to kiss the lotus feet of the Lord and embrace him with his arms. Almost the same thing he was feeling, right? When you see Krishna personally, even within your heart, it's non-different. It's the same personality who's there within your heart also. Dhruva Maharaj has seen this person, but he's a 5-year-old boy. And Prabhupada writes in one of the purports that he doesn't have this Vedic knowledge. He didn't go to a school. He didn't learn any of the Vedic conclusions. So he was feeling inadequate. He wanted to offer so many prayers, such like we say in the prayers when we begin Srimad Bhagavatam, Uttama Shloka. Right? This is one of the names of Krishna. Uttama Shloka is, what is the meaning? One who is praised by transcendental words, right? Transcendental songs or poetry. This is one of the names of Krishna. So when the devotees see Krishna, they have this natural tendency that I want to glorify you, Krishna. But Dhruva Maharaj was feeling very inadequate. And therefore, Krishna understood this. What does the Bhagavatam say? How did he understand? In the translation, how did Krishna understand that Dhruva Maharaj was going through this conundrum? Yeah, this is it. This is what we read in the translation. Because Krishna is situated within everyone, he could understand what Dhruva Maharaj was going through. No? So therefore, what did he do? He put his conch on his head. And something incredible happened when the conch was placed on Dhruva Maharaj's head. He became spiritually enlivened. This verse is saying. And think about this. This Srimad Bhagavatam, even if you take it as a Sanskrit literature, right? It has incredible spiritual value and potency. But just looking at Srimad Bhagavatam as a literature, a piece of poetry, it is incredibly sophisticated. Because in Sanskrit, you have these things called meters, right? In the Gita, you have this meter, which is the most simple meter, called Anushtup. It has 32 syllables. Same with Ramayana. But as you go into Srimad Bhagavatam, the number of meters that you see get more and more sophisticated and sophisticated. And even the most simplest of meters that you might read, the words are so difficult that even the simple meter is difficult to repeat. And for somebody who had no idea how to do any of this, think about the meter in which Dhruva Maharaj starts his prayer. It's actually quite a complicated one, right? The Anushtup is the basic one. Then the little bit complicated than that one is the Trishtup meter, which is a little bit more syllables, which is the famous verse, Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava. It is different from Sarva dharman parityajya. That's the basic one, right? But this goes even to a more complicated one, and he begins at that platform. And it's so difficult because if you know Sanskrit, you know there are short words and short alphabets and long alphabets, right? And the meter is set. These are so many syllables that can happen in this one verse, one line. You have to set them in such a way that it doesn't break the meter and things like that. But then he begins off in such a incredible way. Another thing that we can see in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the meters tell us is also the emotion of the speaker. Whenever the emotion of a speaker changes, the same thing that happens in the Gita also, right? At that point, Arjuna is so confused. He's completely like given all the reasons to Krishna, but then He says, I'm thoroughly confused. You please help me. The meter changes. It changes to Karpanya dosho pahata swabhav. It's something that's conveying not just a poetic form, but also the emotions of what the speaker is going through. So much is conveyed just through the poetry of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Dhruva Maharaj is realizing what was his situation before the conch was placed and after the conch was placed. And he's saying, now I can actually feel my senses. They're so enlivened. Previously, I had the senses, right? He had the eyes, he had the nose, he had the ears, and everything that he's describing here. But how was he feeling? How does he compare those senses before Krishna placed the conch on his head? Dead or sleeping, right? Basically sleeping, he's saying. My senses were all sleeping. And this is, Prabhupada is quoting this famous song from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada is translating the English. Does anybody know what this song is? Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. He's saying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, oh, living entity, please wake up, please wake up. And we're all thinking we're so active, right? In this world, everybody is trying to do so many things. We wake up in the morning, we get ready, we want to do something, get something. We seem like we're engaging completely throughout the day. But then that's not real engagement. It's actually, we're not using our senses for what it should be used for. Just like how when we are sleeping, all the senses are there, but they're not really being put to use. They're just lying there. So this song, we'll come back if we have time, but this is our situation in this world. Prabhupada says, when we are not engaged in spiritual activities, the senses that are given to us are not being used in its proper utility. Therefore, Prabhupada takes it a step further and says it's as good as dead or being ghostly. You're just wandering around. We really don't know what to do. We want to do something. This is what the ghosts do, right? That's what I was thinking when I was reading this verse, is that the ghosts don't have a physical body. They have a subtle body. They want to enjoy, but for you to enjoy, you need a physical body to enjoy. That's where you actually have these senses, where you can start enjoying these senses. They don't have it, and yet this propensity to enjoy is there. So they are in a very precarious condition, without a body, but this propensity to enjoy is there. The same thing I was thinking for us also is that we have these bodies, we have these senses, we're trying to enjoy, but then we're miserable. We're not really getting what we're trying to go for, right? The happiness is not really there. In fact, Krishna takes this a step further in the Gita. What does he say about the interaction of the sense with the sense objects? What does it bring about? Krishna say in the Gita? Does anybody know? Yeah. Yahi samsparsha jaboga dukkha yone evate. Krishna says. Atyanta vanta kauntaya nateshu ramate buddha. For somebody who wants to have happiness, he doesn't really engage the senses in the object of the senses because he knows that it only brings misery. It's not even like a sleeping state. It's actually even worse. It's actually a very miserable state that all of us are in unless we engage in spiritual activity, right? So get up is the message that the acharyas give, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also the Vedas, Prabhupada says. So let's continue. Dhruva Maharaj actually experienced that upon enlightenment of his senses on the spiritual platform, he could understand the essence of Vedic instruction, that the Supreme Godhead is the Supreme Person. He is not impersonal. Dhruva Maharaj could immediately understand this fact. He was aware that for a very long time he was practically sleeping, and he felt the impetus to glorify the Lord according to the Vedic conclusion. A mundane person cannot offer any prayer or glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he has no realization of Vedic conclusion. When Dhruva Maharaj therefore found this difference within himself, he could immediately understand that it was because of the causeless mercy of the Lord. He offered obeisances to the Lord with great respect and reverence, completely understanding that the Lord's favor was upon him. This spiritual enlivenment of Dhruva Maharaj's senses and mind was due to the action of the internal potency of the Lord. In this verse, therefore, the word Swadhamna means by spiritual energy. Spiritual enlightenment is possible by the mercy of the spiritual energy of the Lord. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is first addressed to the spiritual energy of the Lord. Hare. This spiritual energy acts when a living entity fully surrenders and accepts his position as an eternal servitor. When a person places himself at the disposal or order of the Supreme Lord, this is called Sevonmukha. At that time, the spiritual energy gradually reveals the Lord to him. Actually, Prabhupada makes two very, very incredible points in the paragraphs that we read. One is, he says a mundane person cannot offer any prayer. Why? What is the reason Prabhupada said? Because he says that he has no realization of Vedic conclusion. This is the point. So even if we are trying to offer prayers, how will we offer prayers? Because we have no idea about what the Vedic conclusions are, and we might say some things that are completely inappropriate. And when Krishna placed the conch on Dhruva Maharaj's head, he got all the Vedic conclusions. Anybody remember the verse from the Gita where Krishna says this? Krishna promises this. Promises that Krishna will give all the knowledge that a devotee requires. Dadhami buddhi yogam tam ena mamupayantite. Krishna says this. I give them the intelligence by which he can come to me. Actually, in the next verse, he goes even further to explain how he actually does this, right? Tesham evanukam partam aham ajnana jamtamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvata. Krishna says, I destroy from within the heart the ignorance with the lamp of knowledge. Krishna says. Krishna takes this responsibility for somebody who actually surrenders to him. That's the point that Prabhupada is making in the next verse. That you cannot know the Vedic conclusion unless you have the mercy of the Lord. Think about Dhruva Maharaj. How many of us are doing such deterministic spiritual practice that Dhruva Maharaj did? Even with that kind of deterministic, incredibly austere spiritual performance, it is not possible to get the mercy of the Lord unless the Lord gives the mercy. There is no checkbox in spiritual life that I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, therefore I should get this. It's impossible. Just like how Krishna is independent, Bhakti is also independent. She descends when she wants to descend. This is the verse that Prabhupada is quoting from the Nectar of Devotion. Sevonmukha. Does anybody know this verse? This is a famous verse. Prabhupada would quote often. Yeah. Can you complete it?
Atashi Krishnamadi Nabhaved Garmindre Sevanmuke Hijivado Swayameva
Do you know the
Spratida.
meaning?
Because Krishna's forms, qualities, pastimes are all in the absolute platform, material senses cannot appreciate them.
Yeah.
When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue, chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is gradually purified and one understands who Krishna really is.
This definitely needs. This is exactly it. Atha Shri Krishna Nama Adi. And Krishna's name, and Adi means name, form, qualities, pastimes. Na bhaved grahyam indriyai. Like with our senses, we cannot just grasp them. Just by our own endeavor, right? I'm trying to do this, and therefore I'll somehow know Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes. It's impossible. How is it possible that we can actually know it? Sevon mukehi jihvado. So first we have to surrender and serve the Lord. And the sense that we use, the sense that Dhruva Maharaj wanted to use here was what? His tongue. Speech. Right? This is what he is specifically mentioning in this verse. Especially my speech. He's going through all these different senses, but he's starting with speech. Sevon mukehi jihvado. And of course the other one that you use your tongue for is honoring prasadam. Right? We can honor prasadam and then chant the holy names of the Lord. Swayam eva spuratide. By its own will, it actually manifests. It's not that we can command Krishna, that Krishna, I've done all of this, now you have to come. It's impossible. But there is one thing that can actually attract Krishna. What is it? Bhakti. More specifically, what we were reading in this purport. No? What happens when we are spiritually enlivened? Prabhupada says, something descends. Krishna's internal potency, Prabhupada says. Krishna's internal potency actually descends in us, which is what actually reveals things to us. And who is Krishna's internal potency? Srimati Radharani. Right? Prabhupada says that's why we start the Maha Mantra by addressing Krishna's internal potency with the word Hare. This is Krishna's internal potency. We are addressing Srimati Radharani first, petitioning to her that you please engage me in Krishna's service. Sevon Mukha. This is what is our daily prayer to Krishna. Actually, it starts with Radharani. It is only by the mercy of Krishna's internal potency that we can actually see Krishna, perceive Krishna. Without the mercy of the internal potency of the Lord, it is impossible. Why the internal potency can do it? Because the internal potency, Srimati Radharani, is called Madan Mohan Mohini. She can actually attract Krishna. Nobody else can attract Krishna. None of our own activities and endeavor and our austerities and performances of spiritual activities just by themselves can attract Krishna. Only Krishna's internal potency, as Srimati Radharani, she can attract Krishna. And she is called Madan Mohan Mohini. Krishna attracts everybody. The word Krishna himself means all attractive. But yet, there is one person who can actually attract the all attractive. That is Srimati Radharani. This is one of the characteristics of pure devotional service. The last characteristic. There are 6 characteristics of pure devotional service that Rupa Goswami goes through. You know what the topmost of the 6th characteristic is? Krishna Akarshani. That pure devotional service attracts Krishna. And it's actually very rare. Sudurlabha, the one before that. And only Srimati Radharani can do it. Therefore, we have to pray and surrender to the internal potency of the Lord and serve in that capacity. And when we serve, then Srimati Radharani sees, oh, this person is serving. And then we get the inspiration from within the heart. Right? And let's finish this off. Without revelation by the spiritual energy, one is unable to offer prayers glorifying the Lord. Any amount of philosophical speculation or poetic expression by mundane persons is still considered to be action and reaction of the material energy. When one is actually enlivened by the spiritual energy, all his senses become purified and he engages only in the service of the Lord. At that time, his hands, legs, ears, tongue, mind, genitals, and everything engage in the service of the Lord. Such an enlightened devotee no longer has any material activities, nor has he any interest in being materially engaged. This process of purifying the senses and engaging them in the service of the Lord is known as bhakti or devotional service. In the beginning, the senses are engaged by the direction of the spiritual master and Shastra, and after realization, when the same senses are purified, the engagement continues. The difference is that in the beginning, the senses are engaged in a mechanical way, but after realization, they are engaged in spiritual understanding. Prabhupada gives a definition of bhakti here. He's paraphrasing it, this famous definition of bhakti. What is the famous definition that Prabhupada is paraphrasing here? That includes the senses. Yes, Drishta.
Engage the senses in the service of the Lord.
Yeah, what is it?
That's what.
What is the verse? Remember?
Oh, a verse?
This is the famous verse given by Narada Muni on the definition of bhakti. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, Bhakti Ruchyate. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam, tatparatvena nirmalam, Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, Bhakti Ruchyate. Narada Muni says this is bhakti. This is what Prabhupada is paraphrasing here. What is bhakti? You engage all the senses in the master of the senses. Krishna is called Rishikesha. Who is the meaning of the word Rishikesha is he is the master of the senses. So what is our duty? We all have our senses. We can use it in 2 ways. We can use our senses for our own material satisfaction or to serve Krishna. And Krishna just says point blank that if you try to use it for your own material sense gratification, it's only going to cause you misery. So the only way or the proper way to use our senses is in the service of the master of the senses. And when we do that, 2 things happen. 2 things happen as a result of it, which is what Prabhupada says here also. One of it, Prabhupada says in his purport. What happens as a result of engaging our senses in the service of Krishna? He uses a specific word here. Senses are purified. Our senses become purified. In a minute, I'm almost done. It's 8:16. Yeah. So our senses get purified. So, and one other thing happens is all our designations, sarva upadi vinirmuktam. So we have so many designations that we have for ourselves. A man, a woman, an Indian, an American, an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, So many designations that we put for ourselves based on the body that we take, all those start getting purified, going away. We actually realize what our eternal identity is. Oh, I'm a spirit soul. Oh, I'm a servant of Krishna. We even figure out what our relationship with Krishna is, and our senses become purified. The spiritual master engages us in such a service. And initially, Prabhupada says it's mechanical. Right? We do it because the spiritual master is asking us to do. Oh, I have to wake up at this time. Oh, I have to chant my rounds. I have to follow the principles. I have to do some service. But as we continue doing it, it becomes spontaneous. Nobody has to tell us to do it. This is what the holy name does. It starts doing its work, starts purifying our hearts. And once our consciousness becomes purified, our senses spontaneously start engaging in Krishna service. Nobody has to tell us, Prabhu, can you please do this service? We want to do this service to Krishna in whichever capacity we can. And this is what all of us are yearning for. And this is what can happen by service. And this can happen only by the mercy of Srimati Radharani that we get by addressing her in the holy name, by starting off with her by saying, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We don't need to do anything external. Chant the holy names of the Lord and engage in service that the spiritual master is putting us through. And we'll come to this point. So I'll stop here. Few minutes over time, but we should open it up for questions. Any questions or comments or realizations or reflections? Yes, Mother Sucharya. Sorry, is it okay? Yeah.
Just wanted to add,
It is working.
I just wanted to add to the nectar of the definition of bhakti. I was sitting in a class where Srila Prabhupada was giving the class, and he was talking about bhakti, and he said, the definition of bhakti is continuously responding to Krishna with love. So, more nectar to the nectar.
It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a very concise and how to put this, just making us realize that we're not quite awake here. What is this? What is that? Where is that verse? What is this word? What does that word mean? This verse, that verse, and I appreciate that because I'm trying to think, and as I'm thinking, the verse comes, but then someone else answers. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do we include ourselves completely in this process? We have mind, body, words, false ego, all the senses. How to somehow gather everything under that one desire, and to do it with love. So if it's with love, how does that transpire?
So if I understand the question, is it how do we use our mind, body, and words?
How do we
towards loving
gather?
Krishna?
How do we gather
Do we gather?
mind, body, and words?
Actually, I can think of just the one activity that we do every day is chanting. Right? We use all three in just that one activity: our mind, our body, and our words are being used in just that one activity, and it's a complete activity. And we can do this for every single activity, right? This is what it means to be Krishna conscious. Right? Conscious means we're conscious with our mind. Sometimes we might be using our words in other services. Say when you're cooking, you might not use your words as much. But at least chanting, I can see that it's a complete thing where all three are used. And through that, it propels us. Is that what you've understood the... Including what? Include the mind, body, and words? Yeah, this is the actual endeavor, right? This is the perfection, that every single activity that we want to do, we want to completely give ourselves to that activity. That would be the perfection of bhakti. But it starts gradually. And we start doing one thing at a time. And then over time, initially, like Prabhupada says, right, it's mechanical. Oh, I'm washing the pots. right? It's just using the body. And after some time, we actually are consciously doing it. Why am I doing it? For whom am I doing it? Who is using these? It happens over time when our consciousness starts getting purified. At that point, it becomes all-inclusive.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I was really encouraged about this in trying to get the favor of Radharani. And so I was wondering if you could expand that on how do we get the favor of Radharani so that we can attract Krishna.
Yeah. This is the cycle, right? For us to get the favor of Radharani, whose favor should we get? No? No? Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya. For us to get the favor of Lord Chaitanya, whose favor should we get? Lord Nityananda. For us to get the favor of Lord Nityananda, whose favor should we get? The spiritual master, right? That's it. That's the way. That we don't jump directly. Prabhupada has given us this process, and every day we sing this. What do we sing? Yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado yasya prasadan na gati kutopi. Right? Only by the mercy of the spiritual master can I get the mercy of Krishna. Without the mercy of the spiritual master, I cannot get the mercy of Krishna. Yeah, and this is how the spiritual master is enlivened by singing Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita. Right? He is singing Mahaprabhu's Kirtan, right? And he is dancing. And what happens? Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manaso Rasena. And Roma Ancha Kampu. He has the standing on end, he's crying, he's shivering, and he's incredibly in ecstatic mood, right? We're meditating on our spiritual master in that way. And when we get the mercy of the spiritual, this is the point I wanted to make also, is that only for somebody who has that can give us that. If I don't have it, how will I be able to give it? Right? And we will see later that Dhruva Maharaj, in the prayers, he has performed incredible austerity and he has seen Krishna face to face, and he's beginning his prayers and saying, "Thank you, Krishna, for enlivening my senses." And he has one request actually. What was the intention with which he was doing all of this? Yeah, to get a kingdom, right? That was greater than his great-grandfather. But after he sees Krishna, the one thing that he's asking is, please give me the association of these great saintly devotees. That's what he's asking. He basically rejects everything else. He says, what use? You can actually see the mood of Dhruva Maharaj when you read these prayers. I wanted to do that. We don't have time. But you can actually see in every prayers, I don't know if I've said this before, but every time I read the Krishna book or I would read the Bhagavatam, the plot is so nice. Right? We're reading through, what Dhruva Maharaj is doing. He's controlling his senses, he's doing this, this is happening. The story is moving, the plot is moving, and yet there is a break in the plot. And then the prayers. Oh, Krishna, you're the supreme controller, you're the creator of everything. And I just didn't understand this when I was reading this. Like, even in the Krishna book, you're reading through Krishna's pastimes, Krishna is killing all these demons, and then it breaks into these prayers and prayers and prayers. And why is this happening? Like, it's so interesting to read. And if you see the Bhagavatam, more than 50% of it is prayers, which means there is something to it. And what the prayers tell us is the relationship between the devotee and the Lord. Because each prayer is unique and different when we look at it from that lens. And look, if you read the prayers of Dhruva Maharaj, you see the environment that he is in. He's so frustrated. He's incredibly full of material desires. He wants a kingdom that's so great that nobody has had it. And Krishna is giving it to him. We read this, right? Krishna is going to create a planet that will not be annihilated even at the time of devastation. Dhruva Loka. Krishna will give that to him also. And yet, through his prayers, we can see what relationship Dhruva Maharaj has with Krishna and what his realizations are with Krishna. After doing all of this, Krishna, I saw you, and then all these material things are just horrible. I just want to read that one thing at least, okay? This is text 9. Can you go to text 9? This is what he says in his continuation of his prayers. And he's talking about himself, his mood, why he came to actually do this, right? He says, persons who worship you simply for sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by your illusory energy. In spite of having you, who are like a desired tree and are the cause of liberation from birth and death, foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. He's realizing, Krishna, I came to you for my sense gratification. It's available for everybody. But I have you right in front of me, and yet I was desiring something that was so useless that anybody can get. Even, he's not even saying, like people in hellish conditions can actually get what I'm seeking. Right? Because what he's seeking is not just the palace, but what the palace is actually giving him. Right? That's what he's more concerned about. He's thinking, this palace will give me prestige. Nobody can actually dictate to me what I can do. Because his stepmother was dictating to him what he could do and not do. Right? That's what is the palace, and the kingdom can give it to him. He says, anybody can get that. Right? So it's very nice. When you read the prayers, you can actually see that how this exchange of rasa happens between the devotee and the Lord. That's what's amazing about the prayers. And once we realize that, every single prayer becomes a jewel. Mother Kunti's prayers, you can enjoy it so much. Bhishma Dev's prayers, you can enjoy it so much. There you can see all these wonderful relationships these devotees are having with the Lord. And Kunti is remembering, right? All these prayers are so personal also. See Dhruva Maharaj here? It's so personal. His own realization of what he did. Mother Kunti's prayers, exactly. Oh Krishna, they were going to kill my kids, right? They were going to burn us in the wax house. You saved us, saved all of us. It's not just a generic prayer that all of them give. They're bringing that personal relationship in the prayer. And it becomes so much sweet. And we can do that also. Right? We can also offer such prayers to Krishna. For now, we might pick prayers that actually touch our heart. We might not be able to write poetry or speak poetry like Dhruva Maharaj. But then we can still, when we read some prayers touch our heart. And we can come in front of Kalachandji and offer those prayers to him. And then once we become more advanced, Krishna must give us this. He might touch us with a conch, and we might be able to offer incredible poetry in our own words to Krishna. Yes, Nrsimha Prabhu.
This is not really a question, so if anybody else has a question, I don't want to.
You get the spiritual master's favor by following his instructions. Oh, how do we get a spiritual master? So this is what Krishna says in the Gita, Tat vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. So first we have to know who a bona fide spiritual master is, and Krishna says that a bona fide spiritual master is somebody who comes in a disciplic succession. So it's not somebody who calls himself God or who calls himself the spiritual master. Just like we go to a school, you go and want to learn physics. Who do you learn physics from? From a physics professor or a physics teacher. How do we know the physics professor is learned in physics? Because the person has actually studied physics from a bona fide school and has a certificate. Right? So like that, we have 4 bona fide schools, and people who are associated with those 4 bona fide schools of Vaishnavism are considered bona fide spiritual masters. And we approach the spiritual master in a very submissive mood first, and then offer service to such a spiritual master, whatever he wants or she wants. And then the spiritual master, seeing this, will actually impart the knowledge to us. This is what Krishna says. That with the pranipatena, then we can inquire from him, and because the spiritual master is pleased with our service and our submissive attitude, then the spiritual master actually bestows his mercy on us. It's actually a very long thing, right? But at least this is the one thing it comes to my mind. Get the mercy of the spiritual master. Yes,
Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Everything was so concise and clear, and it's inspired me to dive deeper into Srila Prabhupada's books and study more. So thank you so much for the nice class. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the devotees, the pujaris who've dressed the deities so nicely this morning, and Mother Rasarani for cooking the wonderful breakfast prasadam this morning, Vishnu, Parmani Tai, and Rasika Rani Prabhus for making pancakes and chai for breakfast this morning, To all the kids for coming this morning and making the morning program so nice. Thank you all so much for being here. And special thanks to Draupadi and Kaylee for taking such nice care of them and facilitating that. And to all of you for being here and coming together, worshiping Srila Prabhupada and the deities together and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam together. Thank you so much for being here. Haribol.
Any other questions or comments, or else we are yes. Okay.
You were saying, like, in order to receive spiritual knowledge, one has to first have spiritual knowledge, and I was thinking, yeah, you said something like, in order to give that, they have to have that. And I was thinking, in addition to that, to whatever extent we have that spiritual knowledge, we can also give. So even if we only have a little bit, we can share that little bit that we have with someone that doesn't have as much.
Yes.
So therefore, we can all be preachers from wherever we are on our journey, because there's always someone who's gonna,
Correct. And
yeah.
I remember this from this little Saraswati. Prabhupada would say, right? She would ask, who is Krishna? Krishna is the supreme personality of God. Prabhupada said, that is preaching. And even for a small child, who's like, 3-4 years old, you could still do that with whatever realization that you have. Yeah, and what it does is it has an incredible cyclical effect, right? You're performing your sadhana, doing your chanting, reading Prabhupada's books. And then what happens as a result of it is we try to give that to others. And what giving does is it makes our chanting and reading better. And as our chanting and reading gets better, we try to give better. And this is like a infinite cycle that you can keep going in, right? So thank you for bringing up that point. Is that it doesn't stop us. What I should clarify is that for us to get bhava, basically what Dhruva Maharaj is in, that's basically what I was saying. Somebody who has that can actually give it to somebody. That's what I meant. That Radharani has, she can give it to us. But we all can be instruments of Srimati Radharani and our spiritual masters by giving whatever we have, and that fills us more. Giving fills us more, and we give more and fills us more. Thank you for that point. Okay, we should stop here now. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa sindhubhya evacha, Patitanam pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Antakoti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. I think I had to be minded. I was just going over time and stuff. Help me wrap up. And make sure they're turned off, or else you get the static. अच्छा उसको शीन sorry चलो तो ले लो दूसरे हाथ से जल्दी से कीजिए अंदर करो हाथ और अंदर करो उसमें I think I might have to lift it got your own umbrella? Is it raining outside? No? Sunny? You can use it for both the ways. If it's sunny also you can use your umbrella. It's gonna be sunny now. No, in a month it's gonna be so hot that you might have to use your umbrella. It's gonna be so hot, the umbrella helps you. Not the sunlight doesn't directly fall on you. It gives you shade. The umbrella. You like hot? Without your jacket you can't? Yeah, now it's cold. You have to wear your jacket. Okay?
What's that? Toasted. Do you want toasted? That's very impressive. Starting today, outside in the collection. Wait, the Easter hunt's gonna start today? Yes, Mother Kaylee said so. The Easter hunt starts today?